Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Patrick Phillips. I am the founder and CEO of American Business Systems. Let's get right to our interview today. Let me first of all make sure that Beverly's on the phone here and is with us today. Beverly, you still there?
I am here, Patrick.
All right. Well, I'm going to turn off my video camera right now because I have a picture of you and your husband here, and I'm sure people would rather look at that than me. But for those of you who are watching a replay of this, I just wanted you to know that Steve is not on the webinar today. He actually has another business that he's involved in. Is that right, Beverly?
That is correct, yes.
So he kept that cash flow going on his business while you came through the training. Did he come with you? I forget. Beverly, was he here?
Yes, we both came to the training in May of 2011.
May of 2011. Okay. Wow. That is almost 4 years ago, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm very excited. Almost 4 years, yes.
Now, Beverly, were you involved in the business from the very beginning, full time?
Yes, from the very beginning, full time. As soon as I came back from training, I just started full throttle and worked the business day one.
Just never looked back, huh?
Back.
Well, so tell us a little bit about your background. When you were looking into this business, Beverly, what did you do at the time?
Like most people, I just started Googling small business ownerships and got everything from franchises to dog walking, whatever was in between. And my one parameter that I wanted to zero in on is to make sure that I used my education and my experience, my work experience, in the next adventure that I got myself into. I've been working in the IT field in corporate America for 20 years, and I have a undergrad and graduate degree, so I wanted to use my 20 years experience in the IT world and my education to put that to use and basically work for myself and find out a fit that would utilize my skill set. And that's how I zeroed in on ABS.
Well, why the field of healthcare and billing for doctors? You had no background in that?
None at all. And even though I wanted to use my education and experience, I also wanted to work in an industry that I'd never been in before, so I still would have a challenge, something that would challenge me being new. And again, going into the billing process, I had never knew how a super bill got created, didn't know anything about how things got billed to insurance companies, calling them, any of that stuff. That everything was brand new.
Yeah, so you literally did start from scratch. Well, so how did you handle your lack of experience, the fact that you were new at this when you were talking to doctors?
My lack of sales experience was my big learning curve. So I learned rather quickly that I needed to hone in on my sales experience and learn the sales process in order to get the conversation going with the key people in the practices. Because I originally was thinking, oh man, I can go in and talk and laugh and have a good time with these people, and they'll sign up with me, and we'll go on, and everybody be happy, and everything's going to work just overnight. And I really had to learn that you do have to build those trusting relationships with the provider and their key personnel before they'll really let you in on their practice. And it took me a while to learn that and understand that, but once I got it, that's the way our culture is, and that's where I start now. I don't start in thinking, okay, this is going to be, a quick and easy overnight signing on the dotted line. It does take a while.
Yeah, and I think you've hit just exactly on what most people fear with any business. No matter what the business is, you've got to market something to somebody, and getting that knowledge of how to do that in this industry, of course, it could be done on your own. You could order a book or take a course or something like that. But did you feel like we gave you what you needed there in the live workshop to be able to go out and do that?
Absolutely. I didn't know where to start, and the training was key. It was so valuable because it gave me all the tips and tricks and tools to get started, and even 4 years later, utilizing the ADS staff to, I have a question or I have a contract that I want them to look at and review. From the get-go, the training has been hands down the most valuable learning experience to get this going for me.
I think most people, because most people don't have any knowledge or background in sales or marketing of any kind, I think that's the biggest fear that most people have, and probably other licensees that you've talked to, that's the same fear that they express to you. I know you've taken some reference calls from us, and they probably express that about being scared about finding their first client.
Absolutely. And I remember in training, and it's very true, the first one is always the hardest. But after that, you kind of get into your groove and you understand what you need to do. But that initial contact, that initial client, I don't know why it is, but the first one is the hardest one to get.
Yeah. And I think that's why this business appeals to a lot of people, because they know that once they get a client, they don't have to resell that doctor each month. I mean, he's going to have, new patients come in and new billing that has to be done each and every month. So the residual part of this, I guess, is what appeals to most people, huh?
Absolutely. And, once you have that one client, as we all know, they have friends in the same industry, and they're very close to other doctors, and they know each other very well. So it's a lot easier to get that warm lead, so to speak, by having that first client. And that actually happened to me, where, unbeknownst to me, two of my clients knew each other from way back when. And one of my clients wanted to see the EMR in a live setting, taking in consideration all the HIPAA compliancy and everything, but basically just wanted to see how it worked. And so I took my one client to the other client, and it was like, a class reunion or something. They walked in and saw each other and said, "Hey, I know you." So it really is a small world. Once you get one, they know their friends, and you'll get introduced, and it just takes off.
Yeah, we've had licensees tell us that they did what we taught them. We teach about a dozen different ways to go out and market and get clients, and they went out and did some of those things and got their first client, and that's all they had to do from a marketing standpoint, because the referrals, of course, are going to build your business.
Yes, and one of the things that I learned in training was the networking aspect. And, I took that advice and started looking at the different networking groups locally here. And I joined several of them, and I got my first client by being in a networking group. One of the other members of that group had some provider contacts on her, within her LinkedIn account. and she offered, she said, if you ever want me to do a introduction through her LinkedIn connections, she'd be more than happy to.
Oh, wow.
So I cruised through her LinkedIn connections and said, here's the providers that I'd like to be introduced to. She did it, and from there on, that one of the providers got back in touch with me. We had some conversations via LinkedIn and set up an appointment, and the rest is history. I've been doing his billing, and he has our EMR for the last 3 years.
That's a perfect example of what we teach, isn't it? I mean, now the word networking probably doesn't mean a whole lot to some people unless they've been in business for themselves. Explain a little bit about what that means to go out and network.
There's several different ways. Being a member of like a chamber of commerce or a formal or informal networking group. Some of them are pretty reasonable cost-wise. Some of them can be a little bit more expensive to be involved in as a member, but it's a group of people with like interests that are business owners, and they want to utilize the group kind of like an extension of a sales force. So if I'm in a networking group of 20, 25 people and I get to know them very well, they get to know me and know about my business. I've got 20, 25 people when they're out on the beat doing their own thing and they run into, ideal client of mine. They know my history, they know what my business is, and they've got their eyes and ears open, saying, oh my gosh, I just heard that, Dr. Smith is unhappy with, the way that their collection process is currently going. Oh, well, I know Beverly, and that's part of her toolbox, so I'm going to let her know that this doctor might be a possibility. And, you never really know who's gonna be the most likely, what we call power partners within a networking group. And a power partner could be anybody that has like interest in clients. One of them you wouldn't think of could be like a landscaper. Somebody that has a landscaping business and all they do is landscape for doctor offices. Well, that's a great power partner to have in your networking group, because landscapers, they're going to be around that building all the time, and they're going to run into the doctor. They get paid by that doctor office or the real estate person. It just grows. The whole relationship aspect of this business is pretty incredible when you sit back and think about it. It's like, why would a landscaper? How could they help me? Well, they can. Same with CPAs and lawyers. I mean, doctors need CPAs, they need lawyers. Those are power partners that you can find out in networking groups that can really be your advocate when they're out trying to get clients of their own.
Yeah, I like that term you're using, power partners. It's other business people who also do business with the same people you want to do business, which in this case is doctors. Yeah.
Mhm. And I learned that term in training.
Oh yeah, that was our term, wasn't it? Hey,
Yes.
Beverly, I've got some folks actually typing some questions in, and for those of you who haven't found the little question box there, I'll show a picture of it here on the screen. But we do have a couple of questions that have come in, so you guys feel free to type questions in. This is your chance to ask somebody besides me or someone else at ABS, actual questions about how she's built her business and just anything you want to ask. Now, we're not going to answer questions about her what she's paid in taxes or what her revenue is, but she can give you some feel for that in some of the questions. Like here's one, for example, that does have to do some financial stuff, Beverly. It's from Amy. She says, I'm curious about the financial side. What is your thought about funds needed to start this besides the licensing fee to get that first or second client? Did you spend a lot of money yourself?
No, actually, I don't know if I spent any money because when you go to training, ABS, part of your license that you sign in on, they have folders, pamphlets, brochures, a lot of marketing tools all ready for you to really get going. I think I probably purchased my business cards with, initially I went to, your typical website printer type person, bought my business cards just so I looked official, and utilized the folders and the inserts that I got from ABS. So my initial layout was more money-wise layout was more to get myself involved with the community networking groups and get my exposure that way. And then I took all the marketing stuff I got from ABS and did, hit the pavement and did it that way. So no, not a lot of money at all.
Yeah. I mean, I have known some licensees that really just went all out. Of course, like you said, we provide over 2,000, flyers and brochures and things for people. But, if they run out, they can order more. If they really want to do a canvassing of an area, maybe they are going to spend some money on direct mail or and some of the networking groups, of course, cost a membership fee to join those. But really, folks, for most people, what we provide is all you need. Now, if you did have another $500 to $1,000 set aside, it probably wouldn't hurt because, like Beverly said, you're going to have some business cards and your website. We provide a website, of course, but you're going to have to host it, and that costs I don't know, $100 a year or something like that. So yeah, there's some things. If you don't have a good computer, maybe you want to upgrade your computer. You'd have to spend a little money on that, of course. Okay, let's see, Beverly. Here's one from Panna. Says, how long did it take you to break even, your total initial investment, including the ABS licensing fee? What did you think your ROI was time-wise? Was it within a year?
It was, I want to say, probably a year and a half.
Yeah.
It was definitely under 2 years.
Yeah, and I think that's typical. I mean, realistically, most people will look at the first 2 years of any new business. If they're in the black ink rather than the red ink, they're doing good, aren't they?
Oh yeah, and I know it was under 2 years because I was whistling Dixie when I got my taxes done in 3 and 4, saying, "Oh, I made a profit! I'm so excited."
So you were thrilled to pay more in taxes, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I was.
Yeah. Everybody should be. In America, that's the way it works, bring in more money and to pay more. Okay, here's one from, let's see, this is Dev, D-E-V, Dev. I have a family friend who is a doctor. He tells me that most of the doctors already have in-house billing or have outsourced. So how can we earn their business? Good question, huh? That's true with all doctors. They're either doing one or the other right now, aren't they, Beverly?
You know what? That would not scare me off one bit. And family, friends, okay, I understand that. My leading question would be, what is your AR? What is your AR balance, your accounts receivable balance? 9 times out of 10, the provider is going to look at you cross-eyed and have no idea what it is.
Yeah, that's right.
And, I use that as a lead-in because our process, our system is so efficient that AR balances are so manageable. Usually providers, when they're, either have their billing in-house or out, the AR balances are just atrocious, and they don't know what's outstanding. So I would just ask them, hey, are you happy with your accounts receivable? And if they're spot on and they know exactly what's going on and they know exactly what's on their 60, 90, 120, then they're probably a pretty efficient practice. But I think those are few and far between.
Yeah, I agree. Well, most doctors that our licensees are signing up are either doing the billing themselves or they've already outsourced it. I mean, it has to be one or the other, right? Unless a doctor is just brand new, and there's very few brand new doctors probably that licensees actually sign up because they don't have any billing yet.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me if the billing's currently in-house or out. Usually they're just like, oh my gosh, come help me. Can you make sense of this? And we can. I mean, it's just, it's like we're a breath of fresh air, and we go in there and we can just make sense of their chaos. And then you train if their people are in-house, you train them the right way of what they need to do first. I mean, it's I don't want to say it's a no-brainer, but it's a no-brainer. I mean, the first thing that a front office person should do is verify a patient's eligibility of their insurance. If they don't have insurance, have them sign a financial agreement. I mean, no patient, in my opinion, no patient should be able to see the provider unless the front office has done their due diligence. Now, I know there's exceptions. I understand that. But what if the patient gives you a bum insurance card? It's been expired, whether they realized it or not. You're going to have a tough time down the road collecting on that claim because, say the insurance was past its effective date. The front office is so critical in getting the appointment kicked off correctly, and if it's not done correctly, everything else downstream is just a mess.
Yeah, it does start with making sure that the patient's actually covered by insurance because, as you know, Beverly, doctors don't collect but about half of all the money that they bill to patients. So insurance is very important to the doctor's revenue, and that eligibility check is something that most doctors' offices don't have the time for because you got to get on the call with an insurance company and you're waiting 10, 15 minutes before you can get, the answer. Whereas with our system, you push a button and it just goes and checks the insurance company's database and tells you instantly, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing.
It is. Now, here's a question from Timothy. Timothy says, Beverly, do you mind sharing with us one of your latest clients that you've signed up?
Oh, I would do.
Was that the one you were telling me about? Well, yeah, you just told me about that earlier, didn't you? It was a lab, right?
It's a pathology lab. I signed up. It's a one-provider pathology lab. She's got 4 or 5 lab assistants and then 2 office people. I signed her up in December 8th, and she was a little leery at first. She's been in her business for 4 years, but she's been a pathologist for 20 some odd years, but always working for somebody else. And so I signed her on in December, and once I was maintaining both systems for the first 2 months, her previous system and our iClaim system. And once she saw what I could do in iClaim versus her her previous system, she was pretty impressed. In fact, I just had a conversation with her yesterday. She wanted to know what the reimbursement amount was for the month of March, and I let her know, and there was a pause, and then she said, "That's a lot more than I had previously."
Can you give us a hint as to how much that was?
Absolutely. She had $110,000 in reimbursement for 1 month.
110,000. Wow. I bet she was
Yeah.
happy with that, huh?
And and in January, when I was working her previous system, I ran a report on her AR just to see what I was going to be working on, and I ran a report on her January receivables, and it was 57,000.
Oh, so about half. Yeah.
Yep, about half.
Oh, she's going to be your best friend, Beverly.
You know what? And she's my best friend too.
Yes. Now, somebody actually asked this question, and I don't know if you want to share this or not, but it's pretty common knowledge what the percentage is out there. What did you charge this particular lady?
I initially started 7% with all my clients, and what I do is kind of see how automated their processes are. If they're really automated, then I'll drop to anywhere between 5 and 6. If they're a manually intensive client where there's a high maintenance, a lot of inefficient processes, I'll pretty much stick to the 7%. This client, she is all electronic, all automated, so it's very, very easy to process her claims. And I got her at 5%, and she was happy with that.
Oh yeah, well you should be happy too. That's pretty good. 5% of 110,000. Yeah.
And it's she's one provider. She's got a great idea. This is how she's building her business, and I'm going to be building mine right along with her. She is a local here in Pennsylvania, but her vision is to have contracted pathologists across the country.
Oh.
So she's contracting pathologists in Oregon. She has some in Texas. She's got some in Louisiana. Those pathologists are going to the nursing homes, going to the doctor's offices. They're drawing the blood. They run they package up, however they package up blood, and they overnight that to my client's facility where they run all the tests. And then the test is going to be interfaced into our practice management system, our iClaim, and her business is going to be increased tenfold because of all these contractors that she's hiring across the country. So not only does her practice flourish, mine will too, because I'm going to be getting all that business that the contractors that she's hired across the country.
Oh, and I'll bet she'll be able to share with them, the fact that you doubled her revenue.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's
a win-win across the board.
It is. It's fantastic. Let's see, there's a couple of people here who've asked this question, so I'm going to summarize. Thomas and Lynn are both asking about how long did it take to get the first client, and how many billing clients do you have now?
Yes.
Or provider.
As I alluded earlier, sales was not my forte, so I came out of training thinking I knew everything, but I did have a long learning curve. My first billing client took me 11 months. And, I sold some of the other software within the toolkit that ABS has, so I was getting my feet wet little by little. But the first billing client took me 11 months. And right now I have 12 providers that I bill for.
Well, that's nothing to sneeze at. If you do the math on this, and people probably don't know that we have a little calculator there on our website, but it can mount up very fast. This one that you just collected, 110,000 at 5%. That's what, over $5,000. So it just depends on the type of client, and it also depends on how much time you put into what you're doing out there from a marketing standpoint. As you know, Beverly, some people in your class even went out the first month and got a client. But others take, 3-6 months. I tell people, look, it doesn't matter. This is a very real business. It's very secure. Medical billing will be around a long time, as long as there's people that get sick and doctors.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're building a solid business, something that's not a fad, a passing fad or gimmick, like, picking up dog poop or, scraping gum off the bottom of, people's tables. Really, there's franchises for that, out there. Then it doesn't matter how long it takes. Okay, well, let's see. Let's get on to some more questions here. Here's one by Panna. Oh, they're asking, in your example of the 110,000, was that a monthly figure?
Yes.
That was last month?
Yeah, this past March, yes.
Wow.
And mind you, that wasn't all of her claim volume, because she still has a little bit of residual from her old system.
Ah, I see. Yeah. Well, then it will be that will grow then, won't it?
It'll absolutely grow. Absolutely, it'll keep going up, and not only with the additional contractors that she's hiring across the country, she's getting licensed to be able to do more and more testing, different kind of testing within her lab. So she's very forward thinking and wants to grow her business as rapidly as she can, and I'm all for that.
Yes, I can imagine. Let's see. Camille wants to know, have you branched out beyond medical billing to credentialing and other services? Well, you mentioned earlier that you'd offered some of our other services, but some people might not even know what credentialing is all about.
Yeah, credentialing was one of the services that I did, and that's basically contracting, negotiating with the insurance payers. The providers, if they, are new to their, if it's a brand new student, for example, right out of college, well, they got to have a contract with Highmark, and the process to get that contract is called credentialing. So I did one of my very first client, in fact, my first client that I sold our EMR package to. She was the provider, and she was branching out from a group practice to be on her own. So she had to go through the credentialing process on her own with her own business, and I utilized our credentialing contract to do that. Now, that credentialing specialist just so happened to also be a licensee, and I haven't talked to him since that contract, so I hope he's doing as well as he was when we were doing business together. So the credentialing, the EMR, iClaim, one of my practices is looking at the auto card process, I've got 2 of them that are doing the quick collect. So, in fact, I just got a check today from the quick collect process.
Yeah.
So the toolbox is great.
Sure. And some of those services, of course, you make money on all of them, but some of them are great door openers, aren't they? Because if the doctor's not ready to talk to you about their billing situation, maybe they have a problem with some of the other things that those services can solve.
Hmm. You know, speaking of the audit guard and the code right, those services, you know, if you ask a provider when was the last time they had anybody review their super bill, well, again, they'll look at you with deer in the headlights going, what?
Yeah.
And, you know, one of the recommendations I often talk about is I think that providers should have a annual review of their coding.
Sure.
And, you know, like getting your oil changed in your car to make it run smoother and better, you get an oil change. It's the same with making sure your practice is running smoothly. Let's make sure we're using the latest and greatest codes. What is, you know, okay, let's review that with our contract. Are we sure our fee schedule is up to date? So, I mean, that information is valuable for them to hear you say, because that just adds credibility to you and your business and what you can bring to their table.
Yeah, and it kind of distinguishes you from other medical billers because other companies don't have all these services to offer. And it's funny because you mentioned code right, and one of the questions here from Anne was, Beverly, do you need to be a medical coder or know about the codes?
Nope. Not at all.
Nope, and that's because
I didn't know one. I didn't know any of them. I had no idea. I got my feet wet with my first billing client. As I mentioned, he's a physical therapist, and he uses 3 codes. I got used to those 3 codes in a day. He's got 25, 30 patients, and his codes were the same across the board.
Well, that's nice. Well, and that's true with most doctors.
Nice.
Yeah, most doctors are using a dozen, maybe 2 dozen. It depends on what type of doctor, but you get to know those codes by heart. You don't even have to think about them, but you didn't have to know them because they're built into our system. The codes are all in there, aren't they?
They are built into the system, and I utilize our system, well, in many different ways. If a provider is saying, hey, what do I use? I just put in the description, and you get a dozen or so codes, you know, because they all have suffixes, and, you know, they drill down into specialties, and I say, well, you've got 1 to 12 codes to pick from. What would you like? You can be as vanilla or granular as you want. What fits what you're diagnosing?
Yeah.
The other cool thing was I was in a client's office 2 weeks ago Tuesday, and one of the front office gals was talking to somebody else in the office, and they're talking about ICD-10, and she's like, you know, I got to start doing my research. I'm going to hop on the web here this week and try to figure out, you know, all this ICD-10 coding stuff. And I looked over at her and I said, why are you going to go out on the web? Well, you know, it's just so full of information. I know I can get it there. And I walked over to her system, and I brought up iClaim, and I told her, you know, bring up a couple of different patient charts, get the codes, and I showed her in iClaim where she can put the codes and bring up the ICD equivalent. So the ICD-10 equivalent is already in there. It's already coded. It's already described. And, you know, we're just waiting for that almighty date that it goes live. So she didn't have to go out on the web and do any research. She can do it right there within the system that they already have.
Yeah, and even though that deadline is October 1st of this year, we already have them built into the system. So you can actually put in the ICD-9 codes and then push the button to show you what the ICD-10 codes will be. And yeah, it's a great learning tool.
Yep. So yeah, she was really pleased to see that functionality, and she can start learning. Well, you know, she's got her ICD-9 codes memorized. What is the equivalent? So she's ahead of the game before October 1st comes around. So it was a really key learning point for her that, hey, the system really does have a lot of information, very robust, but very, very user-friendly.
Yeah, and there's never a charge for updating of the codes. We have certified medical coders, of course, that keep those codes up to date at all times in the system. So every time you log in, you're using the most up-to-date codes there are out there. Let's see, Kevin, I guess that's how you pronounce that, Kebbyn, says, once you got your first provider, what was your day in the life of work that you were doing daily?
Well, let's see, data entry I exported, this is funny, I'm remembering this. I exported his patient demographic from his old system. And my husband is also in the IT world. And the formatting to import the patient demographics into iClaim obviously is different than the provider's previous system. So I utilized my husband's programming skills, and he wrote a program to do the data formatting and conversion, and then I just imported that into iClaim so that I didn't have to do a lot of data entry for his current patients, the provider's current patients. Any new patients coming in is what I did the data entry for. Then it was your typical, you got to add your fee schedule in there, any templating that they wanted to do, if they wanted, certain things on their patient statements, just kind of prepping that whole account. The actual claim process, I mentioned he sees 25 to 30 patients, and I had his codes all memorized on day one. His claim process I could get done in a half hour, 45 minutes. So the majority of my day with this client was training him and his staff, getting used to his account, his patient volume, any nuances with his fee schedule, getting used to his payers that he utilizes, getting credentialed with any payers that he wanted. And then once I got, a few months worth of data in iClaim, I started doing analysis to see if he was getting his biggest bang from the payers, and utilize the credentialing specialist to do the analysis and see if we can make him more money. And it was a very positive experience.
Yeah, and so it really, I've had that question asked before to other licensees, and of course they have a completely different thing that they do on a daily basis. It depends on whether you have people working for you, and that's one of the questions we're getting here, Beverly, about from Pana. How many employees do you have? What is your monthly rent, or do you work from home? And do you do any data entry yourself?
Yes, and yes. Daily stuff. Depending on the workflow. I was in the home. I did have a home office for the first 3 years, and I had 2 part-time workers working for me at that time. One of them was local, and so she would come to my house and work with me. The other one was in Idaho, and she worked remotely, and just so happened to be a family member of mine. And, another beauty of having a web-based system is you can be anywhere with internet access and have access to the account. So my worker in Idaho was seeing the same thing that I was here in Pennsylvania. So if she had any questions on a patient account, that it was easy to work from. But I would spend, my typical week was Mondays and Fridays I would spend my time in the office. Mondays are typically a provider's worst work day because everybody's coming in from the weekend being sick or whatever. And Fridays, they're usually playing golf. So you can't get anybody on Monday and Friday.
Yeah.
I would work from home doing all of my own business stuff, and then my data entry on Monday and Friday. Of course, my part-timers would be doing it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and that's when I utilized my networking time. I was out all the time, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 7 to 8 o'clock, going to meetings, meeting people for one-on-one conversations, networking, chamber events, you name it, door-to-door, dropping off brochures, all of that kind of stuff for the first 3 years. And it's only been this last year with the 12, 13 providers that I have that I've thankfully been able to cut back on the networking because I've been needed more in the office to help with the work. I currently have three girls working with me besides myself, supporting the 13 providers. And I moved out of the house into the office a year ago today.
Oh, so you do have a commercial office space?
I do have a commercial office space now, yes.
That's terrific. Oh, well, I'm so proud of you, Beverly. I did not realize that. I've got to fly up there and visit you and take you to dinner and take some pictures. I mean, I'm assuming that Steve would go with us.
Oh, he's always for a free meal.
That's what I say. Anytime anybody offers to buy me a meal, I say yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so what was your process in hiring these people? Camille wants to know.
Oh, great question. Let's see. The best way that I found for myself was there are local trade schools and technical schools that have medical billing and coding programs. And I reached out to the student advisor or whatever their titles are, and said, hey, I'm a local medical billing company. I'm looking for people to hire. Do you, by chance, have any students that would, excuse me, like to start off with an externship and do some work? Oh my gosh, did they jump all over that? So those technical schools, if you've got some in your area, they are wonderful. One of the girls that I got from the school, she's been with me a year and a half. She is my right arm. I mean, I was able to go on vacation, literally, the first time in 4 years, just last week. Excuse me. And I was off the grid for 5 days.
Oh my goodness! I bet that killed you, didn't it?
Oh, it was one of those. Oh, can I do this? But I texted her when I was on the plane, and I said, "Here's just a few last things. Can you do this and do this?" And she's, "Will you just get out of here?"
Well, that's good to have that kind of person on board, isn't it?
Yeah. So the trade schools is great. I've done advertising in the classifieds. Word of mouth with your power partners is always good. You want the people to work for you that you network and do business with that you trust. You just don't want anybody off the street. But the trade schools by far have been my best candidates.
Yeah. Beverly, we're going to wrap it up here pretty quick, but I have a couple more questions. One's from Isaac. He says, have you had to query a doctor for a diagnostic or procedure code after having a claim rejected?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And do you just go back to them within the system, or just call them up and ask them what code they want to be used? Or maybe you suggest some from the system?
I do all. You know, definitely. And one of the things about the system that's so cool is if the doctor gives you an incorrect code, the system's not going to let you pass that incorrect code onto the claim to be sent to the payer. So one, it's got to be a valid code or else it's not going to go through. And you see the description. So if it's a podiatrist, for example, and the code given to you was for something, you know, with your lungs, well, you know it's a bad code because last I knew my feet didn't grow out of my lungs. So you can go back to the provider and say, hey, you might want to double check this.
Yeah.
And they do, and they, oh, you know, I transposed something, and you know, the better thing is to have them use the EMR, and it's all right there, and he corrects his own mistakes.
Yeah, they can just go in and correct it themselves, can't they? If you give them access to the system, sure.
Yep. So very, very easy to do.
Well, Beverly, thank you so much for your time today. I know you're anxious to get back to running your business, so I want to thank you for taking the time to answer these questions. I'm sure it's been very helpful to people who are, you know, thinking about getting into this business. Any last words you'd like to say to those folks?
If you sign up, don't give up. I never look back. I never wanted to throw in the towel. There are some times where you think this just isn't going to turn around, and all of a sudden something breaks loose, and you're like, oh, thank you. This is exactly what I wanted to do. And I never looked back. Never had any hesitation. I jumped in. Training is so much fun, and it's key to really solidifying my decision, and it's just been a great experience.
Well, thanks again, Beverly, and just keep in touch. Let us know what we can do to help you here at ABS.
Thank you so much, and we'll do.
All right, bye for now.